Two.
Hi, we're in a Water Street room in Water Street Inn, and we're going to be talking about the Red Zinfandel today. Red Zinfandel is a wine that is considered an American classic. It's originally thought to be from the native California grapes, but it actually is from a grape that came from Croatia. And the Zinfandel became popular or famous in Italy and the Roman Empire. But for all practical purposes, the grape and the wine came from these areas in the 1800s and has been grown in the vineyards in California since that time. The grape is primarily grown in a cool and coastal area growing locations, also up in the mountains. The Red Zinfandel likely to be seen with a very deep red color, and it's almost bordering a black in color. The Zinfandel is a spicy, peppery wine, and it has hints of berries and dark cherries. This wine will typically go with great American classics, such as burgers and pizza, and it also pairs really nicely with red sauces because it's a nice hearty wine. And unlike the white Zinfandels, which are a very sweet wine, the red Zinfandels, the skins are left on the grapes longer, and this leaves the wine with a robust flavor and a very deep color. Our first wine that we're going to talk about that Water Street Inn carries is Bradford Mountain Zinfandel. This wine has been aged 14 months in French, Hungarian, and American oak barrels. 40% is new oak. It's grown high atop the Bradford Mountain and is in an area that's cooler and adds amazingly fruity persona of a mountain-grown Zinfandel. The wine is dense and brooding with the bounty of intense dark fruits. It has flavors of mocha and coffee bean from beneath a layer of brambleberry, blueberry, and boysenberry fruit. The taste is rich, vivid, and concentrated, while at the same time it has seamless and gentle integrated tannins. This wine is paired very nicely with a Kansas City-style barbecue or a pig roast with rosemary thyme crust or chili and cornbread. So as you can tell, these are very versatile wines. The next wine we're going to talk about is Medusa. Medusa comes from the gentle rolling slopes and vibrant red Shenandoah soil, which accentuates this vineyard's unique rich berry character. Pigpen, which was planted in 1978 and is named for the fencing that surrounds the vineyard, protecting the luscious berries from wild boars. Pre-fermentation of cold soak capture the bright fruit character and further offered a rose petal bouquet with flavors of Rainier cherries. And Rainier cherries, if you're not familiar with them, are a very large cherry and very juicy and full of flavor. This wine is aged in 100% French oak for 8 months. The next wine we're going to talk about is a director's cut from Coppola Vineyards. There's 3 layers to these vineyards, or to these wines. We have the diamond cut, which is the first one. The next one is going to be our director's cut, and then the top one is the Rubicon, which is the Cabernet Merlot. This wine, Francis Ford Coppola started these vineyards relatively recently in comparison to the other vineyards. And he chose Sonoma County as the home for his new winery. He did this because the area was beautiful and of its winemaking potential. Coppola provided the winemaker Corey Beck, who was a Sonoma native, the opportunity to make the wines with grapes grown in the proverbial backyard, which was very important to him at the time. The combination of the climate and the vineyard sites and the 2 types of farming methods used produces excellent fruit with intensely concentrated flavor. The vintage was a winemaker's dream, and quite possibly the vintage of a lifetime. An unusually dry winter gave way to warm, dry spring, which significantly reduced the crop size. Conditions such as these typically provide very highly concentrated grapes, and because there were no heat waves during the summer months, the fruit matured slowly and evenly. As a result, there was full phenolic development in our in the red fruits and an ideal level of ripeness, and it made perfect vintage for them. This wine has a deep, rich layer of blueberries, raspberries, dark chocolate, and mint with a vanilla caramel finish. This would be a really good wine to suggest to people that haven't drank a lot of Red Zinfandels. It's got a lot of flavor without making it so dry that it kind of scares them away, so to speak. Anyone that drinks a Pinot Noir, a Cabernet, or a Merlot, or a Shiraz, if they want to try something different paired with the right fruit, can definitely drink a Zinfandel. They also go very nicely with desserts. The next wine we're going to be talking about is the St. Francis from the Old Vine Zinfandel. This vintage marks St. Francis' 11th harvest of Old Vine Zinfandel from the famed Pagani vineyard. The Old Vine Zinfandel is crafted of fruit from grapevines first planted by the family patriarch Felice Pagani on the Sonoma Valley vineyard in the 1800s, and to this day is farmed in the old field blend style. This wine is aged in American oak and specifically selected for its cinnamon, nutmeg, and clove flavors, truly enhance the complexity of the treasured Sonoma Valley Old Vine Zinfandel. It also has flavors of ripe black cherries and licorice. Not quite as unique as some of the others, but it's still very good wine. This one's going to be closer to someone that likes a really nice Cabernet or Merlot. They can step up to the St. Francis one. The next wine we have is the Gnarly Head wine. This is probably going to be the most familiar to Red Zinfandel drinkers. This wine is crafted from 35 to 80-year-old vines. The medium-bodied wine combines the luscious, heady aromas of blackberry, raspberry, and spicy oak with the richness of chocolate and jam. Its complex flavors of French and American oak add spice notes to the balanced mouthfeel, lending to a smooth and juicy finish. Older vines produce fewer grape clusters, which is the grapes that are used in the Gnarly Head, but the small berries yield very intense concentrated flavors characteristic of the great Old Vine Zinfandel. Gnarly Head Old Vine Zinfandel grapes are hand harvested from head-trained vines that are 35 to 80 years old. And this wine is a little bit easier to drink than some of the other ones. It's not quite as complex, but it's still a very good Zinfandel. And this is going to conclude our tour of the coastal Zinfandel vineyards.
And how long have you been working for Water Street Inn?
Almost 3 years.
And what positions have you held?
I have been a bartender, I have been a server, I have been a cocktailer, I have been a manager of a different location, and I have scrubbed toilets and cooked.
Thank you, Ann.